Hello. So you're gonna have to forgive me for this one because I did all of my daughter's medical care in French, and I often have like the French vocabulary in my mind instead of the English, and I often mispronounce things, which you've probably noticed in my other videos. But for example, in French it's called a colostomy, and I think in English it's called a stomy. So I sometimes say colostomy in English, and so I'll try my best. But the care. So when we got home from the hospital, Haley was 6.5 weeks old, my daughter, and things were actually really easy. We were changing her entire apparatus about every 4 days, and we had 0 leaks for the first 2 months. Her skin around the stoma was absolutely perfect. We had the type of system where we had a bag that didn't empty, so we had to remove the entire bag each time and just throw it out and put on a brand new bag. And we changed about 5 bags a day. And then after she hit around 2.5 months old, things started to get a little bit more messy and we were having more leaks. So we started changing. Instead of every 4 days, we went to every 3 and then finally every 2. And we're having pretty good success with that for a few weeks. And then just as she started moving more, as she started teething, all of a sudden we hit this mark where we had leaks every day, 2 or 3 times a day. We had to change the entire apparatus, and her skin was getting so burned and so irritated around the stoma site that the skin barriers or skin wafers wouldn't even stick to her skin anymore, and it was just getting out of control. She was just in extreme pain, and we hit this one day where she woke up screaming, and she screamed all day. And every time we put her in the bath, it was just like screaming bloody murder and trying to change her system. Like, we were both crying because it was just a real nightmare. So we actually just drove to the hospital and demanded to see a specialist. Our actual hospital here in France didn't have any stoma nurses or stoma specialists, so they referred us to another hospital here in France that's called Necker, and it's really known for its children's hospital, one of the top children's hospitals in France and I think Europe. And we got in that day to see a stoma specialist, and in 20 seconds she figured out what the issue was. So for my daughter, she had what they called a flat stoma. So that means when she was relaxed, her stoma was kind of like this, like just barely above the skin level. When she cried, it kind of went up like this, but in general it was very, very close to the skin level. And so we were using a system where we had like this Play-Doh-like ring that we would mold around the stoma, and then we'd put on the skin wafer with paste all around it on top of the Play-Doh ring and stick all of that to her belly. And we learned with a flat stoma that it's like the absolute worst thing you can do, and there's no way that the poo won't seep in because you're building layers on top of something very flat. So what we actually needed was a special skin barrier or skin wafer that like pushed down the skin just around the stoma site, so then like it looked like this all the time. And from that day forward, we again moved on to not 0 leaks, but very, very few leaks. We maybe had 3 or 4 more leaks before closure after we got her in the right apparatus geared to her stoma. And we also, after we changed systems, we were using Hollister products, and on the Hollister removable bags, they have these little tabs on the back around the circle that attaches to the wafer, and they have these little white belts that are infant belts, and you put the belt around the back of the baby, and it attaches to those little tabs on the Hollister bag, and that really helped keep her bag like tight, especially as she was starting to move more and more and more. And we had literally no issues after that. It became quite easy and quite comfortable at home taking care of her. And in the end, we were changing her every other day. We noticed we weren't having leaks, but if we left it 3 days, then she'd start to get a little bit of irritation around the site. And as we kept getting closer and closer to closure, we wanted to keep her skin as obviously clear as possible. So we started doing it every other day. And then for the 2 weeks leading up to the closure surgery, we changed her every single day just to make sure that the site was was very clean because I knew that the doctor was going to do the incision for closure right over top of the stoma, and apparently it makes sense for healing. It's best to have the site clean.